Okay, welcome back to the Seven Deadly Sins Anime Review, episode number 23. We're reviewing the 69th episode of the Our Choice and the 340th chapter of the manga because I want to see you. Yeah, this is interesting though. First time in quite a while that I'm able to actually review a new chapter of the manga with new episode of the anime. They just happen to release it in the right time. Okay. Now, for this episode says adapts from chapters 243, 246, and 248. Here's kind of the interesting about this. 243, they actually finished this chapter after they got halfway through last week's episode. 46, they surprisingly adapt the entire thing. 47, they adapt all but the second to last page of the chapter. And for 48, they adapt most of the chapter. From what I can tell, basically pages 5 through 15. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's most of the chapter. Yeah, I'm not really sure why the chapter 244, 245 were skipped over this one. Now, for this episode, we pick up exactly where last week's episode left off. We have Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Chandler flying up to see Hederos. Okay, that comes back in at least a few minutes. We have a brief scene in the beginning of the Seven Deadly Sins, where they basically contemplate what happened, and they, they bring up, we have, the most of the scene is pretty much intact in the manga. Surprisingly, there's no, with the exception of some dialogue changes, visually the scene looks exactly the same from the manga, which Gagali's praised the fact that Studio did actually a good job with this particular scene. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit extended here and there, like seeing first thing you see is the end sweeping up a broken bottle of looks like wine possibly. In the manga it's a brief like one panel. In the episode it takes up like almost a minute of screen time. And then we see King punch his fist down on a table, hurting basically the front of his pretty much like the front of his fingers, and everybody basically thinking what happened. Plus also I think it was Hawk basically points out in the episode he referred, like, Meliodas mistakenly referred to him as Demon King. And then Merlin looks at him and realizes, though, that his eye is basically the key to Purgatory. Yes, his right eye. And, yeah, somehow they kind of followed up basically a minor line from last week's episode. This basically turned out, yeah, this is true for the manga. So they basically mentioned basically the little history about Purgatory and about the one person who's been there actually has come back, and it was Merlin's father. Apparently, when her father went, he was a very handsome guy, and it comes out he's an old man. His walking stick that he had pretty much nearly melted, and her father described Purgatory in pretty much in thorough detail, and then you figure out somewhere to go there retrieve Meliodas' emotions. So Bond volunteers because he's immortal. He's like, who look after the end? So he said, "That's Hawk do it," and so he's basically hit the Purgatory. You see him briefly falling. It's like, oh, this is Purgatory, and that's last to see it. The Seven Deadly Sins for the rest of the episode. Then we cut to seeing Meliodas, Elizabeth, Chandler, Zeteros. Well, first thing you see is we also see Essarosa, who's actually out of his coma. Actually, he's woken up. He's actually out of the tube, and there's this demon who's been watching over him. Yeah, finally got a name is Preti, and she's a pretty. You first see like expecting a very tall woman. No, this woman's pretty short. Yeah, and like, oh, you're just here for my experiments. You can kind of think of this character sort of like, from what I can tell from her, someone who's obsessed with one character and successfully experiments on them. You can kind of think of this character as Seven Deadly Sins version of the character Sally from Black Clover. Very similar character in that sense. In love with her experiment, well, implied. And that's pretty much it. There's similar traits. Heck, the coats are very similar. The only difference is that this woman does not wear glasses. Yeah, that's a big difference. And two, Essarosa is not the main character of the series. Essarosa is just one of the Ten Commandments. So they figure out that he could become like Demon King. So and there's a brief fight between where basically Meliodas basically pins down both Essarosa and Zedros pretty easily now. When they first arrived, this scene is pretty accurate to the manga. I mean, there's not even a. As for the visual change here, I think the only thing they do change is basically, I think they slightly changed the wall behind Zedros. But aside from that, there's not really much change to this particular scene. So, yeah, he's not basically like the fact that Bill has been chosen as the next Demon King. So, he technically does want to become Demon King, but he wants to become have power rival with the current Demon King. So, he wants to retrieve all the Ten Commandments. So, lucky enough that Zedros have retrieved 3 of them, and apparently Meliodas had Merlin retrieve from one from Greyhound. I'm like, Greyhound, which one was that one? Probably the Truth one. I'm not really sure which character this one was, because it's been a while, because they killed off like 2 of the Ten Commandments back in the previous season. Now, Zedros said he got his from Droll, Galaxia, and Gother. Got it from those 3. Okay? And so basically they have 4. They still got pretty much like, because, well, Zedros and Esros basically have the commandments, so that makes it the 6. Yeah. So basically they have actually 4 commandments. Okay. Where they can get these commandments from, I have no idea. So, basically, Meliodas whispers something to Zedros, who agrees to work with him with this, and the reason why he wants this, so they can break the curse. And apparently, it's very little bit late. Now, they actually cut like a page here of briefly going back to Merlin. Yeah, surprising they cut this page from this particular episode. It's only 1 page. But as for what they did from chapter 248, it's just 1 scene from like 10 pages, at least 11 pages in the manga. Yeah, this last scene, this last like 5 minutes, is adapted from 11 pages. You have, Meliodas Elizabeth in a bedroom. I don't know if this is basically confirmed to be, I don't know whose bedroom this is. It could be Arthur's bedroom. They don't say. All as I know is this is supposed to be Camelot under control of demons, and this could be Arthur's castle. Yeah. Oh, in case you're wondering about the whole thing with Bond, he is there for a long period of time in Purgatory. He's there up until toward the end of the very next arc. He's there for a long period of time, so he's not going anyplace at all. Yeah. Bond is in there for pretty much almost the majority of the next arc of the series, so he's not going to come back. He might pop up now and again, but he's not going to get out of Purgatory until like pretty much toward the very end of the very next arc. So that was the whole point of that. I will get to that more in a minute. And like it's kind of revealed that, and of course you have Meliodas, who kind of does something really weird. He kind of deactivates his power by making himself completely naked in front of Elizabeth. And apparently Elizabeth has no problem seeing the man she loves completely naked right in front of her. Yeah, she doesn't say anything about it at all. They hug, and then he turns back to his normal self. Well, basically his emotional self. And he says that apparently their love was basically made up. And she thinks that they're basically, their love is basically real, not something made up. I mean, he says something to her that basically upsets her. It's like, he says, "You're going to hit me, hit me." I mean, does she do him a normal slap? No, she uses her goddess power to hit him really hard in the face, and also apparently takes out a window, and then the episode ends with her just running away. Not like a sniveling coward, no, just basically run away crying. And that's the episode. I gotta say, this episode did proceed at a bit of a fast pace, but it got a lot of stuff done in just 20 minutes. Because I watched this episode, I'm like, dang, that was quick. Yeah, despite the fact this episode did kind of mostly adapt from not much of the manga. I mean, as for additions-wise, there's barely anything. I think they changed some words of dialogue here, and mostly it's exactly the same. It's just that, well, they did make the sequence of basically Merlin's father a little bit longer than it is in the manga, but aside from that, it's mostly very faithful to the source material. It's odd though, they actually cut a page from chapter 247, but like it's something interesting. Okay, they finished 243, they do the entirety of 246, but then when you get 247, you adapt the entire thing but 1 page, and then you get them like 10 pages of like the very next chapter. like pages 5 to 15, and that's it. That's all they get done for the next chapter. They skip over a lot of stuff. My guess is they might basically continue this with next week's episode. Who knows? So as far as I know, it's called "The Saints Marching In." Yeah. Now I move on to news chapter manga because I wanted to see you. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since the last chapter came out. Last chapter was 339. I mean, I thought this would be the end, but nope. Then the chapter opens up with the Seven Sins arriving back in Leonis. Yep, we see the King of Leonis. We see, I don't remember this guy's name. He apparently is applied to be a little Gotha. We see Elaine. Like, everybody's back except Merlin. Like, where's Merlin and Arthur? So I stay behind. And this will be really weird about this particular chapter. Now, most of the chapter, you do see Merlin's scar that she got from Escanor toward the end of the previous arc. And there's actually a couple panels where Scar completely disappears for, like, absolutely no reason at all. So, like, apparently she and Arthur are actually in this weird-shaped building that apparently Arthur created. And I think this holy sword here is supposed to be Excalibur. Possibly. They don't really say it could be Excalibur. So, yeah, then we have, like, a brief scene here where, let's see if I can get to it here. Yeah, there's a panel here, basically, like a very small panel, where I get that basically is okay, that not show the scars, but there is actually a panel here where her scars completely disappear from one panel, and then, like, next panel, scars are back. I'm like, what? Why the heck were scars disappear for? No, make no sense. So yeah, they talk about basically like chaos for a while, the fact that possibly Arthur may have a grudge against him. Like, nope, he doesn't. He doesn't have a grudge for hiding her. He just didn't like the fact she hid it from the Ten Commandments. Well, and then we have this great scene. We have King and Deanne, Merlin, Elizabeth, Bond, and Gother sitting on a table. I mean, this panel basically reminds me of the classic painting of The Last Supper, painted by the awesome Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, that's what this panel reminds me of. I'm like, did the writer of the series... I have the name right here. Now we got Suski. Did he basically just do a homage to The Last Supper? Yeah. So, they basically most like what Merlin in this chapter, and of course Chaos like not being gone yet. And then what happened in the previous chapter with the cat basically eating one of Arthur's arms. And they pretty much like, it's kind of in the way you can kind of say it's setting up what they're going to do next for this particular arc. And then we have like the chapter ends. And look, here's the panel right here. Yeah, here's the panel right here where her scars disappear. And then the very next panel, scars are back. So, like, apparently they sense a presence outside. Is Arthur, you in there? Yeah, here's the panel right here. It comes from, like, toward the end of the chapter. We see Merlin basically holding back Arthur, and her scars are gone. I'm like, what the heck is this? And every next panel, they're back. Like, what the heck happened here? Also, apparently, it looked like she's wearing lipstick a lot of the chapter. Yeah, that's completely gone. Yeah. I mean, the way it looked like she was wearing lipstick. But no. Yeah, that's kind of the weird thing. Maybe it's the coloring. Maybe it's just the way basically it's drawn. It's like, okay, first she's seen wearing lipstick, and then lipstick disappears, and then her scars disappear, and then they come back. Like, what the heck is this? It's so bizarre. As far as I know, there's no explanation for this at all. So apparently, I think the cat creature that he killed last chapter came back. Like, Monster Cat, you're pointing with me. So yeah, looks like we're going to have Merlin versus this Monster Cat for next chapter. I'm like, okay, interesting. I mean, if you look overall at this particular chapter, it's a pretty good chapter dealing with the aftermath of what happened last chapter. It's interesting, though, that out of all the characters, Meliodas gets a lot of dialogue this chapter. Elizabeth gets nothing. I think she gets maybe like a couple lines, but that's it. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, man, I miss Escanor. Great character he is. So, yeah. This chapter is actually pretty good. It does end pretty decently with Merlin getting into a fight with a monster cat. Okay, fine. And, well, that's pretty much all I could say about this chapter. It's a pretty dang good chapter. I'm going to get this chapter roughly a 9 out of 10. It's a pretty good chapter. I would give it higher because it's still a pretty decent chapter, but my only slight problem with the chapter is well, I wouldn't give it half point because actually it's a really good chapter. My only slight problem is it's like, okay, Merlin is seen with her scars and looks like she's wearing lipstick at the start of the chapter, and then like halfway through the chapter, lipstick disappears for no explained reason. And then pretty much on the what looks like the third to last page, third to last page of the chapter, her scars disappear for one panel, and then all of a sudden, the next panel, oh, it's back. Yeah, her scars disappear for like no explained reason at all. I hope somebody basically explains to me like, okay, now there was one panel that looked like that her scars disappeared, but that was basically a tiny version. Okay, it's okay not to show her scars, but this is basically a full panel. Yes, we see Merlin in normal attire, and her scars disappear. Maybe it's the way it's drawn is just particularly very weird. And then you see it back, and it looks like her scars cover part of her face. I'm like, what? Yeah, it's weird. It's a mild thing I have against this chapter. Yeah, but not much else to say about this. Still a good chapter nonetheless, but just artistic fails as one. Yeah, so that's it for this particular review. I would do one more review, but I gotta get up early tomorrow for work. So yeah, tomorrow expect to see a review for definitely for Trigun tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, so that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned for tomorrow for Trigun, and that'll probably be it for tomorrow for reviews. Okay, see you next review. Bye.